This is the second annual cemetery tour where we have actors portraying real people that used to live in the Princeton area. And I am portraying my grandpa, Philip Lehner Sr., who opened his law practice here in Princeton in 1904.
And this is Mike Lehner portraying his grandfather, Philip Lehner Sr.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and greetings. I'm attorney Philip Lehner Sr., and I opened my law office here in Princeton in 1904. But before I tell you more about myself, I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about my grandfather and my father. My grandfather was also named Philip Lehner, and he was born in Bavaria, Germany in 1821. Between 1846 and 1848, he immigrated to the United States, and he came to the Wisconsin Territory and settled into what is now known as Washington County in the town of Polk near Hartford. He built the original Lehner homestead there at that time, and then in 1852, my father, Andrew Lehner, was born, and he lived on the same homestead, and he was a farmer. Then I came along in 1883, again born on that original homestead in Washington County. I attended, growing up, a one-room country schoolhouse. I went to Hartford High School then, and I graduated there in 1900. After that, I taught school for 1 year, but then I decided to enroll in law school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And that was a 3-year course of study. I graduated then in 1904, and I came to Princeton. Well, you might wonder, why in the world would I come to a place like this? While I was in college, I was asked to judge a forensics contest in Montello, Wisconsin, a town just about 11 miles to the west. And when I was in this area, I was just really impressed with the beauty, the vibrance. Princeton had this wonderful river with a lot of commerce flowing through that. It had the railroad coming through town. And so the very next morning after I graduated from law school, I moved to Princeton here and opened my law practice. Now, it wasn't long after I started practicing that I was asked to run for district attorney of Green Lake County. I did that. I was elected. I was elected the 4 consecutive terms, so I served as district attorney then in Green Lake County for all of those terms. And during that period of time, I also became very interested in politics. And I would follow, and I was very interested in, he was called Old Bob at that time, Old Bob La Follette, and I was really interested in his progressive views. Now in 1911 then, I was actually appointed executive counsel to Governor McGovern. And I am really proud to say that I made the final draft of what was called the Corrupt Practices Act. After that, I kept practicing in Princeton, and actually then always still being active in politics, and as a progressive Republican, I decided to run for the United States Congress. And in so doing, we had a primary election, and as this might attest, you can see that Phil La Follette, who ran for governor, and I for Congress, we both won the primary election. And you can see here, Mr. La Follette and I ran on the same ticket there as Progressive Republicans. But I have to say, unfortunately, in the general election, I was defeated by a mere 486 votes. But I continued practicing in Princeton, and while I was here in Princeton, I served on the school board for over 30 years. I also was the mayor of the city of Princeton for 2 terms, and during that tenure of being mayor of Princeton, that is when we put in the sewer and the waterworks here in the city of Princeton. In my over 50 years of practicing trial attorney, I tried cases in 2/3 of Wisconsin's counties. I also was probably during that period of time, I have been told that I tried more cases in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court than any other attorney at that time. But you know, just to digress a little bit, technology, you know, we got a typewriter in my office, you know, very soon after I opened. But there is another invention that I think really helped law offices and offices in general, a really neat invention: carbon paper. Unbelievable. If you can tell me that in the future there will be a more important invention dealing with office technology than carbon paper, I'd like to hear that. I mean, next you're going to have sliced bread. But I did marry Anna Heppy early. When I came to Princeton, we had 4 wonderful children, all 4 of which graduated from Princeton High School. The first was my son, Philip Lehner Jr., who practiced law with me here in Princeton. Then the next was my daughter, Doris Lehner Vaudrille, who married Leo. They were both practicing attorneys in Kenosha, and it was said that she was the first woman to graduate from the University of Wisconsin Law School. Then I had a son, Dr. Robert H. Lehner, an eye specialist, and he performed the first corneal transplant in the state of Wisconsin. And I had another daughter, Jane, who unfortunately predeceased me. But as I stand here today, I can't help but wonder, will there ever be a 3rd generation Lehner lawyer? I have 8 grandchildren, and I just wonder if that will ever come to pass. Let me see.
Philip Lehner Sr. would have been elated to know that 3 of his grandchildren received their law degrees, including Michael Philip Lehner, who just retired last year after practicing law here in Princeton for 41 years. Michael Philip Lehner's youngest son, Andrew, then became the 4th generation Lehner lawyer born in Wisconsin. And I hold in my arms Leo Law Lehner, the youngest great-great-grandchild of Philip Lehner Sr. Could it be possible that he may become the 5th generation Lehner lawyer born in Wisconsin?